Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, How Technology Improves the Employee Experience. Questions can be made at any time via the chat window, and there will also be our regular Q&A session at the end of the webinar. My name is Michael Dank. I'm a digital marketer here at Ascender, and presenting to you today, the one and only David Adamson, Head of Marketplace Solutions. David, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you, Michael. As we go back into lockdown in Melbourne for 7 days, for those not in Melbourne, you may not be aware, whilst it's only a 7-day lockdown, we do sympathise with our friends and colleagues who are in other parts of the world who are still in lockdown. So it's just a short stint for us, but nevertheless, last day in the office for at least a week for us.
Yeah, and I guess today's topic is really quite fitting with the lockdown coming in. It really emphasises how critical technology is for employees and for businesses.
Absolutely, it's becoming so important on a daily basis. And for those laggards in certain industries who think that technology may not be needed as we come out of COVID, I think they're being proven wrong at the moment. And hopefully today we'll just talk about some of the reasons why it's important. And give some guidance as to some areas that might need to be focused upon.
Excellent. So we'll have a look at a bit of an outline for today.
Beg your pardon?
So we'll have a look at an outline for what we'll be looking at today in the webinar.
Absolutely, yes indeed. Yep. Yeah, so today we'll look through some of the challenges which most of us will be all very familiar with. We'll look at the employee experience. We'll talk a little bit about that and contrast it or compare it with customer experience as well. We'll look at two examples of technology in HR, which are well known, but they're good examples to talk about, being performance and learning. And then Goulburn Valley Water, which is a utility in Victoria. We'll look at how they shape up as well, and also open up the floor for some questions and answers. And Michael, it's a delight to see so many people logging in today for this one. The webinars are becoming more and more popular, which is a test itself to the use of technology in business as more and more people become comfortable in attending webinars as part of the work environment.
Yeah, we've definitely seen a really big uptake over the last year in particular in webinar attendances. So it's a definite trend.
Yeah, so it works. Alrighty, so this slide is fairly self-explanatory. It's find the industry that you're in, and it's 99% sure that you'll agree that you've either been hit a lot or a little bit with regard to being impacted by the COVID industry. We're kind of in the middle as Ceridian Ascender, and we already had a very strong technology approach to working remotely, and our organisation does support businesses. So we've been largely untouched in terms of the organisation, but severely impacted in terms of the culture and the way that we want people to operate. But if you're in the retail and wholesale, it's a no-brainer. You've been hit dramatically in that particular world. If you're in government, then you're probably less impacted because of the, in fact, in many cases, it's been boosted because of the need to provide additional services. So this is just to put in context and to give you some comfort that you're not alone in how you've been impacted, but not everyone's been impacted. Most people have been impacted, but certain areas have not. We have, as I mentioned earlier, the need to utilise technology in the early stages of the COVID crisis was pretty evident. A number of organisations played catch up in getting technology deployed to be able to manage workforces in a remote environment, and those that have deployed it anecdotally are going to continue with it forever, and I can't see why you wouldn't. There are a number of industries that are still resistant, a number of organisations still resistant to putting in place formal technology-driven solutions, and those organisations are probably going to suffer in the next 2 to 3 years as individuals, as the workforce does expect a very strong tech support participation rate to the working environment they have. So we are experiencing a shift, not just in generational shift, but in expectation. The second point here is about treating our employees as customers. So when we go looking for a bank or a utility or someone, one of the things that we do consider is, what's the technology like to me as a consumer? So when we're looking at, as an HR professional, looking at how we deploy technology within the business, we should be looking at our employees as our customers and saying, well, what are they going to expect from the greater world in terms of banking, utilities, these sorts of things? How can we provide a similar experience to make sure that it's easy to use, functional, and gives them that support that they need? This is all changing very much the acceleration of technology within the changing world we're at the moment. PricewaterhouseCoopers and many others operate frequent surveys, and some of the results here are some of the survey results. So going back to that statement that as an employee, I want technology to work within my business as if I was using it as a customer for another organisation. Why should I have to put up with substandard technology within my business when I can get tremendous technology as a customer outside of my business? So these statistics, 73% say that their systems, if they had better systems, they'd be able to produce high quality work. That's a no-brainer, but now we've got data to support that. And then we've got 50% of people who say that they're satisfied with the resources to help them learn to use technology. Now that's an interesting one, because if it's really, really good technology, then it should be intuitive, easy to learn. We shouldn't really have to train people on it, but provide some hints and tips from time to time. So complex technology needs training. It doesn't need to be complex. Simplicity is difficult to build in, but once you've got simplicity in a system, then it's very easy to deploy. Take an Apple iPhone, for instance. It costs a lot of money to develop, but its simplicity in use means that you can deploy it without having to train people on it. And of course, people want to use technology to do the basic of tasks. People don't want to have to be completing spreadsheets or paperwork. No, that's gone. That's in years past. It's in decades past now, given the acceleration of technology over the last 18 months. We want to use technology for all the basic activities that we do at the moment within our work.
Excellent. That takes us to our first poll. How effective is your organization's technology at promoting remote working? I think over the past year or so, David, a lot of companies would have been drastically improving in this department. Would you agree?
Indeed. I think if we asked this question, we probably did in a webinar 12 months ago, then we probably, I won't, we'll talk about the results when the results come through, but I suspect that we'd have a different result now that we had 12 months ago. But people certainly have progressed over that period of time.
Yeah, for sure. So everyone, we'll give you 20 odd seconds to get your answers. Almost everybody has responded, I can see. Okay. I think that is about everybody.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're looking at. Effective 47%. What do you think about that, David?
Read those out, Michael. I don't see the results, so if you could read them out, please.
Okay. We have very effective 26%, effective at 47%, average at 26%, and poor at just 5%.
Yeah. Well, last year, I know anecdotally with some of my friends who worked in what you would consider to be very effectively operational companies, they did not have the technology to support remote workforces. So they were scrambling the first 2 or 3 months of the COVID crisis to put in place technology. So if we asked this question way back then, the numbers or the percentage of organisations that would have not have been able to have effective technology would have been a lot higher than it is now. It's encouraging to see that it is, but there's still lots of room to move and lots of areas for organisations to improve on the effectiveness of deploying technology to help people work through the crisis.
Okay.
So we talk about employee experience, or you'll see the term EX come up, so that means employee experience. There's 4 key areas that we really want to just touch on today. So employee experience is a bit like customer experience. So think of it as customer experience because they are your clients. If you're an HR professional, you want people to actually want to engage with you, to want to utilize the technology you're putting out rather than just using it because they have to. So personalisation, you want to make sure that it's clear, it does what they want them to do. It's consumerization, they get the same type of willingness to use the technology they would if they're using a piece of technology that they're as a consumer in the broader marketplace. Wellness is another particularly important point. We'll touch on that in financial and mental wellness again. And the culture that an organisation can drive by using technology is tremendous. The boost that can be achieved there is phenomenal. So let's have a look at these in just a little bit more detail. So when we personalise technology, well, before we get there, technology years ago used to be you were given a particular system or even from a particular bank or utility, and that was it. Everyone had to have the same look and feel. You had to have the same elements on the main menu, whether they were of use to you or not. Now what we're talking about is making sure that you have the ability to change the menu a little bit, be able to personalize it, put your colors in. If you've got a banking app, you can say, I want to sort my bank accounts in this particular sequence. Or if I've got an HCM, human capital management system, I want to have performance and learning up here, recruiting down here, or put it in a way that I work, the way that I work. I want the functions, but I want to be able to sort it out in the way that I operate. So Salesforce, one of their surveys shows that people respond better and perform better when they know that they're listened to. So organizations that deploy technology that allow employees to be able to personalize their technology, have it structured the way that they operate as an individual, because everyone's a little bit different, might have multiple people doing a similar job function, but they might want to structure things a little bit different. So if the technology can support that, then we're supporting them to be a more effective employee because this is the way they want to deliver on the outcomes. Really important part when looking at the technology side of things. The employee experience, there's a lot of research that's gone into employee experience as well as customer experience. And you're probably aware of customer feedback. You would be asked for feedback regularly, but there's also in retail, there's mystery shoppers, there's all sorts of different ways that organizations engage to get the feedback on how consumers want to be treated, how they want to be, how they expect their experience to be. So it's very important that organizations listen to that and put in place programs that reflect how employees want to view the technology and how they want to use it. So think about consumerization again. You go from bank A to bank B. The products might be pretty similar, but often a bank might position their products for a particular generation because they can do certain things. They can organize things in ways. They can put colors, logos, these sorts of things. It's not difficult to do with good technology. If you can do that, then you're winning the mindset across the generational gap. Very important to be heard. And all leaders who have done any type of engagement and any type of feedback analysis will know that people expect to be listened to and they expect to be looked after. So gone are the days where we just put people in an office and we say, right, this is your 9 to 5 job. This is the computer you will look at all day and this is the applications you'll work. It's more flexible. It's not just in the working hours, but it's in the technology that we use. Very important part of, looking how we're going to improve as we move forward. A big impact on organizational culture. Wellness has been spoken about a lot. We've done a number of webinars around mental wellness, about financial wellness, about general health and hygiene factors within organizations. Technology can help this. One of the things that we do talk about is financial wellness within an organization. Now, as we start to have a more remote workforce, or people spending more time working from home than they do within the office, sometimes it's difficult to assess how people are coping in that environment, if it is a forced environment like a lockdown, or if it's a voluntary environment where people choose to work remotely. Sometimes we have trouble in understanding where they're at. So as leaders and as managers, we need to start assessing, where are people at in the journey of mental wellness and also financial wellness. But financial wellness is one where people do get into strife from time to time. But if we can put in place the technology to help support financial wellness, then we're way ahead of where we were beforehand, and it gives our staff a feeling of comfort, a feeling that our organization understands it. Now, financial wellness can mean different things to different people. What I'm talking about here is putting in place things like early access pay type technology. Now, this is not about lending money. It's not payday lenders. It's all about making sure that people have got access to pay at a time when they may have earned it. So if you get paid monthly, why not have access to half your pay at the halfway mark of the month, or after a week after you've earned it? So it's getting pay after you've earned it, not borrowing money for the balance of the month or anything like that. But having access to your pay as you earn it means that people can start to smooth their own personal cash flow. And we know that when there is financial stress within an individual and a family, that causes all sorts of knock-on impacts. So not everyone suffers financial stress, and not many organisations actually offer products or tools within the organisation that allow individuals to take advantage of being able to look at other ways they manage their finances as well. So it's a very important part, understanding how individuals and organisations manage financial stress. If you're like most organisations now, you will have in place some mental wellness type programs and practices as well. A really important part to make sure that people are well looked after, that we understand how they are emotionally, how engaged they are, what can we do to help, how else can we make life more palatable while they are in a lockdown situation. Financial wellness is one of them. Once we start getting a particularly strong employee experience and we start treating our employees as customers, and they start to see that they're being listened to, and we're putting back into the solutions we're providing employees as if we were putting solutions into our customer base, we start to build the culture. An organisation's culture is critically important to the success of the business. And frankly, if the business is not successful, then we won't have an organisation to employ people. So it's a critically important part in promoting organisational success, that is getting the culture correct. We want to make sure it's supportive. We want to make sure that we're being seen to be listened to. We want to make sure that information is disseminated quickly and easily within the organisation. Gone are the days when we want to issue, 5-page emails once every quarter on what's happening in the business. That's just not palatable anymore. People don't read that. They tune out after a half a page or a paragraph or two. What we want to do is start looking at short, sharp bites. Really, really important. At Ascender, we were acquired by Ceridian, a global organisation, a couple of months ago. And since we were acquired, we've had short, sharp updates from the executive team about progress, what's happening. It's been terrific. Half-hour snippets, regular short emails. This type of short, sharp communication is critically important for people to know what's going on with the business. A quarterly update doesn't cut it anymore. We want to be more frequently updated in short, sharp bites. Very, very important part to make sure that staff understand that they're being communicated to and not just told something every 3 months or so.
And David, I really find that the transparency that we've experienced over the past couple of months it's given me a lot of confidence in the leadership as well. So it's really good to take on.
Indeed, not just knowing what's going on, but that's right, confidence in the organisation and the decision making at the executive level. I agree.
Okay, everybody. Time for the second poll of today. We're going to give you again about a minute to get your answers in. Which of the 4 areas outlined today do you think can have the biggest impact to EX in your organisation? David, I think this would kind of depend on the industry people might be working in. What's your opinion?
I think it does. We span across a lot of industries in this call. We have people who are office workers, and we have people who spend a lot of time in the field and direct face-to-face communication with clients. So it'll be a pretty generic result, but it'd be interesting to see the results. We have people who may not need to use technology on a regular basis. We work a lot with outdoor workers in government councils within Australia, and a lot of the outdoor staff don't use technology in the day-to-day activities. So it'll be a different result on an industry by industry, but what we're looking for is a broad move up the scale.
Okay, sure. Guys, I think I might close the poll now. On over the minute mark. So David, I'm not sure if you can see this, but...
No, I can't see the results, so if you could read them out, that'd be good.
No problem. 33% personalization, Consumerization 11%, wellness 33%, and culture 61%.
Okay, no, that's good. And the wellness was 11%, was it?
Consumerization was 11%, and wellness was 33%. Yeah.
Yeah, no, the wellness, the 33%, that's really good. I suspect that a lot of that is from the mental health support mechanisms that have been put in place. Interesting on the consumerization, that's what I expected actually. I expected that to be low because there's still a sense of taking a product and deploying it to staff rather than getting a sense of how do we look at how staff use technology as a consumer. So those results kind of support where I thought we were at. Although I'm particularly happy and impressed that there's a higher on the wellness side.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm just going to. There are multiple examples that we could use in how technology has impacted employees within organisations. I'm going to just touch on two well-known and well-used ones: performance management and learning management, just as examples. And I'm going to use them primarily because most people on the call will have had experience in these. I don't want to use something that no one's had experience on. So we just talk briefly about performance management. If we take the concept of performance management, in years past, a performance appraisal process is when we set some goals at the start of the year, and then 6 months or a year later, I sit down with a pad and I ask Michael, how do you think you went on this? And Michael, you give me a response, and I look back over the year and I say, okay, you get a 3 out of 5 or a 4 out of 5 or a 1 out of 5. It's rearward looking. There's no regular note taking between the two. It's very basic in its approach, and all it does is provide a checkpoint that we've actually had a once or twice a year discussion. And if it's on paper, even if I have it all on paper on a system, it's rearward looking. It gives me no visibility on how I can improve things for the future. So when we talk about performance management, there's two aspects here. There's the process of performance management. If we talk about performance improvement discussions, which means that we sit down and have a one-on-one every week or every couple of weeks, just a discussion. Michael, how are you going on your objectives? What can I do to help? Do you need any further support? How else can we help you achieve your outcomes? And it becomes a regular discussion, and we keep notes in the system, and both of us can see our notes. So it becomes a collaborative and transparent process about ensuring you've got all the resources, skills, training, technology, whatever it is, in order for you to succeed at your particular role. Because if you succeed, then your manager succeeds and the organisation succeeds. So technology is a really important part in having real-time support and visibility on how we can help staff get a better outcome. Now, it's a bit like if we talk about that in terms of, let's talk about banking applications you get on your phone. So if you've got a banking application and you're making credit card payments or you're paying for things, you don't want to have to wait a month to be able to get your statement and see what payments you've made. You want to see straight away, where are the credit card entries? You know, what have I spent on credit card today or yesterday over the last couple of days? It's real-time reporting, which gives me a really important status of where I am, what I need to do, if I've got any left over, or if I need to cut back on my spending. It's the same with performance management. What am I doing? I want real-time feedback as a staff member and as a manager. What can we do better? What can we take as a great example and train other people on that process? We need to know it now, because if we don't know it now, then it's old data in its age. So technology really helps us understand what's happening and be able to make micro adjustments to get a better outcome. And the process of performance management has to go hand in hand. So we need to have that more frequent discussion, but the technology is there to support. And staff expect technology. They don't expect to have a piece of paper or get an email, you know, every week with how things are going. I need that technology to know what's here and now. If we look at some of the benefits, where do the benefits accrue? Well, if we're having regular chats and we're using technology, it's a more focused discussion. So we're talking about what's important, not talking about the weather or sports or whatever. We're talking about exactly the things that need to be discussed. It gives the ability to receive and give recognition to the individual and to the manager about what's worked and how we can improve things. And importantly, because it's collaborative and open, it improves and increases our engagement with the organisation, with the task at hand and between the two people. very important parts across each of those elements. From a manager perspective, I know that if I know what's working and what's not, I can ensure that I can tweak things to get a better outcome for the individual and the team and the organisation. Again, the focus means we're talking on what's important, less background noise, less issues. There's evidence that when these processes are put in place that a lot of the issues disappear because we're dealing with them at that point in time rather than waiting to deal with them in 6 months' time where they become a massive issue. And of course, engagement goes hand in hand with that too, as we mentioned earlier. From an HR professional, well, we do need to make sure that people are following the process so we get statistical information about where people are at in the cycle, if people are following the process, because we know the process works. And if we know the process works, then we can take the data and start to discuss the benefits of more frequent communication with some perhaps recalcitrant managers who choose not to do it. We can show a direct correlation between the more frequent communication and better outcomes for the organisation. There's plenty of data to support that the more frequent communication will mean that we've got a greater understanding of what's working, a better forum or more open forum for talking about improvements or what we need to do and training needs, which means that we will result in less attrition. People are more sure about what's going on, the turnover will reduce, and compliance in terms of legal compliance will improve as well. Very important connections back to organisational benefit as well as the individuals involved in the process. We talk about learning and development. Most people will have been through learning and development programs where you book a time in a classroom, there's 10 of you in a class, you're there for 2 hours, you fill in a form and then you leave after the training. It can be, or it might be a half-hour session, or it might be a day session, or it might be off-site for a couple of days. Those types of days have gone. They're great for strategic planning, but in terms of learning, we offer a different approach. And it's not just our approach, it's the way the industry is moving, it's the way organisations are moving. Online learning means that people can start to look at learning time when it suits them. So if I've got online learning, I can then choose when it suits me to take that training course or to do that training time. It doesn't interrupt a particular element that I do during the day. You will never find a time that's convenient for 10 people to take them into the room for 2 hours. It just doesn't happen. So something misses out or someone chooses not to attend. So online learning has terrific benefits in that sense. Secondly, we now look at shorter, sharper, bite-sized learning outcomes. So no one likes sitting on a course for an hour or 2 hours in that particular situation. What we want to do is to be able to do a course in 5-10 minutes or just do learning bites. Just have a short, sharp bite where we can take that, do that, then move on to another one at a later date. The learning outcomes are much stronger. We know that that supports point-based learning, bite-sized learning. People absorb it more rather than doing an hour's worth of multiple elements in there. Very important part. So the technology helps that. Technology gives people the ability to have that freedom of choice of when I can do it, and the better authored courses are in bite size. So I can do a piece here, a piece there, another bit here to make sure that I'm getting the right learning outcomes. Find my mouse again. There we go. So for those of you who have implemented an online learning system or a learning management system, I'm hoping you've accrued the benefits of doing so. If you haven't yet gone down the path of online learning, I encourage you to look at it. And not only just from a technology perspective, but I encourage you to look at the type of courses and move away from the long courses. Don't just take a half-day workshop and turn it into a half-day online course. That's not the answer. We take our learning workshops, if you've got learning workshops, how can we re-author that to have a 15-minute bite size in a number of times that people can consume it at a time that suits them and at a rate that suits them. Most important in going back to that ethos of what does the employee expect? If they're a consumer, what would they expect to receive if they were taking this up from a company they choose to adopt? The other part of, there are two areas of learning which make it difficult to go into those bite size. I'll just call these out. The first one is when you've got a manual course, of course, there's skills involved in using physical elements. That's an on-site, and that'll be a face-to-face. That's a no-brainer. Secondly, there are some regulatory compliance type training elements which many people need to go through. And they do have, sometimes they're a 30-minute or an hour-long type course, and you can't get away from those. So when we're talking about the bite size, the learning to be able to consume in a time, I'm more talking about the development. How can this person develop themselves? What can I choose from the learning catalog? I might say, I'd like to do that today. I'd like to do some negotiation skills snippets, and that's a 15-minute course. I might like to do a short introduction to presentation skills, or something around Excel, or something along those lines. If it's in a short, sharp course, more people are likely to take it on rather than to engage for a 2-hour course.
Absolutely. I know for myself, I've got an hour trip on the train in the morning, and most of that time I'll use for learning and development, other compliance courses, things like that, because it's so convenient and I can use my phone.
Absolutely, and that's the device independence, of course. Cloud-based means phone, iPad, you've got the choice of when you can do it. So I won't go through this slide in detail. I think we've touched on most of those elements in there. The benefits to employees, managers, HR, and the organisation are quite clear. So we go back to the consumerization side of things. So we have product, you can roll out an HCM system, and it might be in very small font and can't be changed, and we say this is what we're rolling out to our staff and you have to use it. That's not a very good way to engage staff. We want to engage staff as if we treat them as consumers. How will we like the general public as consumers to use what we're rolling out? We want to make sure it's easy to use. They can use it on a phone. It's clear. They can choose the elements they want. They can organize in a way that suits them. It looks modern. It's easy to use. It doesn't need training to be able to use it. Think about how a consumer might look at the technology that you're rolling out, and you'll get a much better outcome.
Okay, everybody. That brings us to our final poll of the day. Once again, we're going to give you about a minute to get your answers in. Question is, what are your current roadblocks to implementing new technology right now? David, what have we seen historically would be the largest roadblock for this type of thing?
Sure. The biggest roadblock is not so much that there's an idea of what we want to do. It's about how do we justify it to the executive team or to the board to release funding to be able to fund this particular project. So business case and return on investment calculation we've found is the biggest roadblock. In fact, the biggest reason why projects don't go ahead and end up in a do nothing state is because they haven't been able to, whoever's sponsoring the project hasn't been able to justify the spend or show the return on investment to the board or to the CFO, whoever's releasing the funds for it. That's probably the main element, but there are other ones that run a close second and third.
Okay. I'm going to close the poll now, share it with the attendees. So no help from the top, hasn't got any responses. Budget is 33%, change management is 60%, and all of the above, 40%.
All of the above is a goodie, yes. Yeah, so it's not ever just one reason, it's multiple reasons. So it might be business case, it might be the business sponsor left, it might be we have non-believers in the executive team, which simply means we haven't been able to state the value proposition effectively. So all those elements are critically important. Any successful project will have those in place. Any project that didn't get funding will have one or many of those elements that weren't successful. So a really important step in making sure the project's justified when it's taken for sign-off. We'll just wrap up with a quick look at Goulburn Valley Water. Goulburn Valley Water, we're looking at learning and development, some other aspects as well. And this is a statement from them. It was a manual process, very forms driven. People had little visibility about what was going on, and it was difficult to coordinate. And a lot of people were missing out on the learning outcomes that the organisation spent a lot of money trying to deploy. So yeah, risk management. Importantly, they were training people in order to deliver better outcomes from a service quality perspective to their clients, which is the general public. We want to make sure that people were aligned to the plan, so the performance and learning outcomes that they were being asked to achieve as individuals had a clear connection back to Goulburn Valley's strategic plan, so people knew not only what they meant to do, but why it was important and what part of organisational success, they were delivering on. And as a result of that, it builds culture. People become engaged. We have a can-do culture within the organisation, which translates into better financial sustainability for the organisation as well. So, case study, well, it did achieve their results, and there are case study documents on our website which you're able to go and have a look at and learn a little bit more about it. But importantly, the performance management side did demonstrate the ability to see what's going on immediately. What am I doing well? What do I need to pick up on? It's immediate feedback. It's immediate real-time information. Manager employee can talk about it remotely because they're all looking at the same data. A very powerful way of collaborating. The L&D plans. So a plan doesn't mean a 3-page long written document. It simply means that we know what someone's going to do from a development perspective and how it ties back to their role. And if it's online learning, it's very easy to see what I need to do, and then I can do it at a time that suits me. If some items are time critical, then of course the individual, the manager, the training coordinator can see which elements are time critical and make sure they're completed in time so that neither the individual or the organisation is at risk. And importantly too, the data is collated to be able to give the real-time reporting that management and executive teams need to be able to make better decisions, whether it be on the bonuses or whether it be on decisions that impact the business that they need to have data that's up to date on. No one likes making decisions based on data that's 2, 3, 4 months old. And in this case, they're able to make decisions on data that is in real time accurate as of now. A very strong case study from that client.
And everybody, you can access the case study via our handouts window. Otherwise, you can visit the website where you can find this case study and quite a few others as well.
So in summarising, technology is important, not just because technology is technology, but we want to make sure it's personalised. People can make sure that it suits the way they operate. Want to make sure that it's consumerised. The employee experience is an experience that they would expect when they use another organisation's tools, whether it be, as I said, a banking app or a utilities app or a retail shoppers app. They want to know what's going on. They want it to be easy to use, intuitive, being able to do what they want to do there. Organisations can use technology to improve the wellness aspects within an organisation, our mental health wellness, our financial wellness, our general health and hygiene. We need to understand what's happening in the business so we can make sure that we're building an engaged workforce and we understand the concerns and we listen and we provide updates, feedback in real time to make sure that individuals know that that information is being used for goodness in terms of bettering the organisation. And lastly, it builds a great culture. The last thing you want to do when you join an organisation is to see a whole lot of paperwork and things that are ages old. We love using technology because it's easy. Technology saves so much rework. It saves time. It gives me visibility to things. It shows the organisation is interested in me as an individual, and therefore I'll be interested in the organisation and work to make sure that we can help achieve our common goals.
Okay. That brings us to the Q&A session. We've got a couple of questions that have come in. If we don't get to everything straight away, we will do so via email after the webinar. So David, the first one is, we currently use several apps and software for managing employees. Are there any all-in-one services available?
Absolutely, and you're probably not alone in that situation. Organisations over the last 20 years have taken on what we call point solutions, a solution to pick one particular item, and that was a really good process in place. So we picked something for learning, something for recruiting, something for engagement, something for performance or whatever. The only challenge with that is we've now got employee data in 4 different systems and 4 different user experiences. So yes, there are. Obviously, we have terrific all-in-one type environments. We've got a common user database, and we'd encourage you to move down that path, because that again is what people are expecting. You know, I don't want to separate that from my credit card, from my mortgage, from my savings account. I want one app that does all of them. Exactly the same consumer type approach.
Okay. Our company surveys employees to get their opinion on important workplace issues. Is there a frequency that we should be doing this?
Usually, or annually at least, biannually preferred with an update. It's an interesting balance between frequency of surveying and when you start to get survey resistance. If you survey people too much, then people stop completing it. So different organisations have a different frequency, but at least once a year, preferably twice a year. But importantly on that, the results or the high-level results should be communicated back to employees, and also any action that's taken communicated back. If staff don't see action taken on the surveys, again, regardless of the frequency, they'll stop responding.
Sure. Let's get one final one in. I think we may have touched on this earlier, but can LMS and performance software be integrated to share data?
Absolutely. The same as earlier with the separate databases. If you've got separate systems, absolutely. The Ceridian Ascender way is to have a single user record, and then you can simply turn on different functions, which means that the record for David Adamson might start with just performance, and then it's got learning, and then it's got other things, but it's all centered around that single record for David. Same look and feel, similar user experience, ability to do different functions within the system. So yes. Okay,
brilliant. Guys, we've gone over the 40-minute mark, so for the other questions, we'll get back to you via email. Thanks for joining us again. It's been a really timely and interesting topic. I hope everyone got a lot out of it.
Thank you, Michael. It's a topic we could talk a lot of time on. So hopefully, there were some good snippets in here that help you along the way, and hopefully we can help in other ways. Please let us know.
Brilliant. And everybody, there is a after webinar survey. If you could complete this, we always love to hear what people have thought about the webinar, if they've got any ideas for future webinars as well. So that would be great. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.